usually I cut this class into 3 segments. So first session is I just give them a very brief introduction, because you have to understand why you're doing this and how it's going to help you. So the first segment is like, try it out, because you can't explain everything in advance. So try it out. So 10 minutes trying, then they'll have some questions, then I'll fix a little bit, and then second segment we practice it together, another 15 minutes or so. Then they go, oh yeah, I know what you mean, and then I fix it again, and then third segment is real practice. Most of the time, by the time they reach the third segment, they get the hang of it. And particularly in a group setting, it's much better for you to sense whatever you're supposed to sense. So the experiential level is much higher. And also the group setting, and also I'm engaging your chi, so it's much easier. And so that's how we're going to do it. So briefly I'll explain. I don't know how long it's going to take, but there are a lot of different kinds of breathing practices, but I am specialized in Taoist breathing, Taoist Buddhist breathing. It's using Dantien. So this breathing technique is very unique of the Far East side. Tibet, China, Korea, Japan a little bit, and Hong Kong. And breathing, we all believe that all the breathing or any practice is originated from India, a Vedic period about 7,000 years ago. This particular line of practice that I'm practicing now is at least from the 2nd century. So it's about a couple thousand years old. But then it's widely practiced up in the cold climates. There are the simple differences. Yogic breathing, if you ever heard or tried it, it's slightly different. Same fundamentals of using breathing to get our consciousness to a certain level, which you will experience a bit later, hopefully by the third segment. So that's the same fundamentals, but because the climates are different. And so I'm going to just focus on this particular breathing technique. So when you do the breathing technique, our body temperature rises. So remember when we did a regular meditation and you felt the heat and some warmth? That's what's going to happen when you put your mind, when you put your consciousness, put your awareness in certain parts, particularly here, and you will notice that heat or warmth, that sensation. So the basic principle of this practice is, you've seen that yin-yang symbol? Yeah? Right? And do you know what that means? It's everywhere. This is plus yang energy and yin energy, minus energy, plus energy and minus energy. This also represents fire energy. And this is water energy. This is, obviously, this is yin, this is yang. And out of 5 elements, these 2 are the key elements. The nature of fire elements is going upwards. So when you light a fire or bushfire, it goes upwards. Unless it is controlled. Controlled fire, like welding, we shoot it down, or torches, we use it for specific purposes, and that is useful fire, but otherwise fire element just goes upwards. So in our system as well, when we get upset, our temperature rises, our face turns red, and just you get steaming, right? Your head is steaming. So that's the nature of the fire elements. And the nature of the water elements is naturally, if you just pour it, and it goes from higher level to the lower level. So the nature of the water element is going downwards. So imagine our body is like a battery, plus and minus, right? And so let's just put a layer on top. Okay, so this is the head, body, and if we're sitting down like this, right? So we were born with a certain, like a battery has certain lifespan, right? Some batteries last longer, some batteries last short. So it naturally gets drained, even if we don't use it so much. So fire elements goes upwards, water elements going downwards. Our battery slowly, naturally drains. And then once the battery life is done, we're done. Time to move on, right? What we want to do is, how are we going to run this battery and conserve the energy and last longer and more powerful? So using this plus and minus energy, so when you look at this Tai Chi, fire energy going up, water energy going down, and then this one start to move and it's turning. So in our system, it's turning. Water and fire elements, yin yang, male, female, male sperm and female egg, same thing. It's all plus minus. There is any chance that plus minus meets, there's a creation happening, and that's what uterus is about. That's one extra organ that male body doesn't have and female body has. And that's going to be Dantien, which I'm going to explain a bit later. That's a very important part. So what we want to do is, and we run this plus minus, it's like a bicycle. It creates electricity, right? So same thing, how we're going to keep this battery healthier, more powerful, and last longer. And the upper chakra, middle chakra, and the lower chakra. So we call this Dantien in Chinese, and in Korean we call it Danjeon. So here's our body. When we sit down, we have three main chakras. In yogic practices we have 7, but in the East we have 3 main chakras. Let's say this is a belly button. Our belly button is here. Then here is Dantien that we're talking about. It's called like this. The field of Dan, field of energy, engine room, the main engine in our body. And this is a middle chakra. This is a heart chakra right here. And then this is between the eyebrows. This is a third one, upper chakra. So this is plus energy and this is minus energy. So what we want to do is put our awareness, fire energy, in our Dantien. Put your awareness here. And because energy, this qi or bioelectricity that runs the system, what moves, what controls it is our mind. So our mind is remote controlling. However you want to move your body, however subtle, or even like things that we don't even know, the really tiny details, our mind can control. So most of the diseases happen because of what's in our mind, right? So by putting our awareness here, we are transforming this water element of minus energy, yin energy, and this is fire element of yang energy and yin energy. We transform this water energy, which is naturally going downwards. We put fire in it, so water gets boiled, and then it goes upwards. It changes its form. So it transforms the water energy to go up, cools down the fire, and brings it down. So this is basically Tai Chi happening in our system. It's the basic principle of this practice. And then let's go into this Dantien, what this Dantien is about. For male body, there are a whole bunch of ways of them to kind of notice where Dantien is. It's below belly button and right above Hui Yin. Hui Yin is where, right in the middle, if you put a pole through it, where it hits, basically where our uterus begins, right? The same spot. So between here, somewhere around here, that's male Dantien, roughly that area. But for women, it's very, very specific. Uterus, simple. So when you're pregnant, it's so much easier. So your awareness like your full attention, undivided attention is here, and then it will basically let this circulation happen. You're making this circulation happen. So what we do is simply put your awareness there. We have another way of explaining this. These three things, we call this one, also we call it in Chinese character, it's called Jing Tong. This radical, this part here, means rice. Rice means milky water, that's sperm. So some guys are born with plenty of, a big reservoir, let's put it that way. And then some are just limited. And so naturally, the water drains. How we drains our water is, for women, we lose through our monthly cycle. So we lose our energy, life energy, that way. For male, mostly voluntarily. Some way more and some way less, even if they want to. So that's how their energy gets drained. So male is more voluntary and more their own initiation. So depending on how they conserve, unless they practice this. So depending on, if you're born with a big reservoir, by practicing this, you will make it more powerful and last even longer. And someone who are born with very limited amount, you will strengthen this and it lasts longer and it produces more. So, because this is so important is this is life energy. It's the battery power. So as soon as this dies, basically you lose that maleness. The XY, it will be gone. By the time you lose this, that's when you're just too old to do anything. Basically, first sign is they lose the desire, or they can't get it up, simply, because they have nothing left. They exhausted all their reserve, basically. So for male, and they all improve in their own ways. A male is more noticeable, because immediately they feel, when they wake up in the morning, the way they feel, or when they actually, making love, or even any, your attitude, everyday life, your attitude changes. Because when you have that gutsy something, and that basically makes you more confident. And for women, we are not affected by this as much as male body, but what it gives us is that gut feeling, that confidence, sureness, and women are a lot more intuitive than men. But then our intuition sometimes is correct and sometimes it's not. Although we say it's always correct, but still, the intuition, sometimes is it intuition or is it just my random thoughts? The difference, based on my own experiences, is that when just random thoughts coming in, I feel it here. Like, oh, I thought about something, or it came to my mind. But when that intuition or some kind of sureness comes in, I feel it from here. So when you think of, based on your experiences, you'll probably remember some of the incidences that sometimes, probably you'll remember 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 major instances that you felt that this is so sure that you're going to do it. You can't explain why, but you have to do this. Something like that. It happens here. So this is our physical brain, and this is our spiritual brain, wisdom. So the difference between knowledge and wisdom is knowledge is you gather from like phones or books, listening to other people's talks, or that's how you do it. And so you can logically explain. There are steps to follow. Whereas wisdom, there's no other explanation. But sometimes when we're just calculating too much, or when we're too scared, even if you know it, you may not necessarily follow that path. That's when we're going to regret it. Like, I always tell ladies that when we walk past a shop, oh, I love that dress. We have to get it. Why? I don't know. I can't explain, but we have to get that dress. But then we walk into a shop, we already know that we want that, and then we try all different outfits and ended up buying that dress and leave very happily. I knew it. Something like that. So this is going to give you a whole different level of awakening and give you that sureness in you. And so, yeah, this is going to be somewhat different because we have to practice body and mind together. It's happening and following our practice. We only focus on this main chakra, then everything else just happens naturally. Focus on the main engine room. We're just focusing on the key area. We just focus the heck out of it, and then this one naturally opens gradually. And interestingly, for women, female practitioners, their heart chakra opens before this one, because we use a lot of emotions and we connect. We're more open. So this practice of so-called breathing through Dantien, this is what we call Dantien breathing, energy gets cultivated, energy gets accumulated here. It's like this. When you put your mind to something, when you're looking at something long enough, like lovers, what do when they're madly in love? Not the people who have been married for 20 or 30 years. They don't have to look at each other's eyes. Just being in the same room, they're already communicating, they already know what the other one is thinking. They got to that level. But then at the very beginning, when the dating period, before they say the L word, if you could remember that time, all they do is just look in each other's eyes. Yeah. That's it. You put as much as your attention to that person, to get that. They're cultivating their relationship. We're cultivating our relationship with Dantien. So we put our awareness there. It's like a new couple. And by doing that, so if you do this for long enough and just holding hands and, probably you don't remember what you talked about. You're just like, right? But through that, you're building this bonding. Somehow you have this unfound a sensation of, I can trust this person. You know what I mean? Something like that.
Really focus on them.
Yeah. So you just touch them and just, you talk to them and just look at them. You give your full attention.
Yeah.
That's exactly what's happening here.
Okay.
So it's not like it's going to be disappear somewhere. It's invisible. But by just looking at each other's hands, just, then somehow that builds up, and probably a year later they build up the courage and finally saying the L word, and that's it, boom, and then they get to the next level, right? That's what we're doing. So this is the beginning stage. We're just putting our awareness and give as much attention as we can, and through breathing. So although it doesn't matter how breathing is happening here or there, it doesn't matter. So do that, then this is the relationship building. And once you build it and very comfortable, then you don't have to look at each other's eyes. And just being around the house somewhere, you know what he's up to, you know what she's up to. That's it. So, 30-year-old couple, they don't have to, talk that much during breakfast. They know. Before he even begins, I know. Don't you think about it? that happens, and then through this.
Okay.
And so, how we're going to practice is, in other yogic breathing, is the inhale is short and longer exhale. But what we do is we keep it balanced, yin yang balance. So the breathing, one cycle of breathing is in and out is one cycle. So when baby's born, they are switching breathing from, they breathe through here, through Dantien. And they take qi. When we say in Chinese or in Korean, when we say this air, we say empty qi. This is empty, this is qi, energy. And so they don't take, this requires the lungs. So babies are taking the energy from the space through Dantien and then take all the energy in, and that's how they breathe. And then as soon as we cut their cords, what happens is they're switching from here to the lungs. That's when they inhale the first breath and they start crying. yeah, I heard. So life begins with inhale. And then when we die, again, I heard, and then even when we're dying, air is not even ours. So we have to basically exhale everything. Every last ounce of air we breathe out and then leave this body. So in and out, that's one cycle of life. So when you are practicing, probably after a few in and out, few sets of it, and then afterwards, I feel hyperventilated, or it's just too much, because your body's not used to this kind of exercise. It's the first time you're introducing this sort of practice. So uncomfortable, or kind of, am I doing it right, or a bit awkward? But naturally, it will, as you relax and follow it, it will get better. So in and out is one cycle. So see how many cycles you can do it, and then afterwards, if you feel a little bit shortness of breath, take a rest and back to the normal breathing, and just relax your body from head to toe. Relax, and whenever you're ready, you start beginning again. We begin either 3 in and 3 out. We're going to set the metronome. 3 second in, 3 second out. If that's too easy, 4 second in, 4 second out. If it's too easy, 5 second in and 5 second out. So most people are between 3 to 5 when they first begin. But we had an opera singer once. And so I goes, so how was it? And she goes, 3 seconds were too easy. I said, so how many seconds did you do? And she goes, 8. And everyone's like, what? For an absolute first, like a first comer. But she's an opera singer, so she uses a lot of this. So singing requires this. Yeah. So it's the same thing. Don't think of it as breathing, because when you say breathing, you think of air goes in this way and air comes out this way. And this will be kind of annoying if you try it. So consider this as an abstract form of, you only think of this, Dantien and nostrils, and nothing in between. So consider this as this squeezy thing. So when you squeeze it, air gets squeezed out. It's not breathing out. Air gets squeezed out. And when you want to breathe in, you just release it, and air gets sucked in. You're not breathing in. You're not shoving in the air. Air gets sucked in and pushed out. Sucked in and pushed out. We don't think of the lungs in this stage. And then later on, once you cultivate this Dantien, and you will know what I mean. We will skip this part. And later on, your entire body opens up, your skin opens up, so you get to breathe through your entire body. So later on, you will start to feel not the physical body, but energetic body, the spiritual body. So your aura, you'll feel the aura in Dantien, and this will do that breathing. And then once this one gets even the energy forms, and then once you start sensing, and then heat start to happen, and the body temp, you'll be able to control the body temperature down to the tiny details, like a little bit higher, a little bit lower. It's almost like a digital thermostat. You can control the temperature of heat that's happening in your Dantien. You can control really down to minor details. You'll get to that point, and then later on, your body stops breathing. And this Dantien takes without the empty air, we won't need the empty air, we need qi. Your entire body will take the qi in, and that's all we need. And then you get to that stage, then it's almost like you're not breathing. You will get to probably some people by the third segment, they notice that. It's like, oh my gosh, I didn't breathe, but I feel very comfortable and calm state. We want to get there. And that's where all the thoughts disappear, and you feel that it's almost like a coming home. You're coming home, and that very comfortable sensation. You don't need to breathe. You don't have to do all this. This is just for us to get there. But once we get there, there is that space that we want to, that state that has very comfortable, and then you don't need to breathe, and you're physically, mentally, and spiritually, you feel just like, okay, this is it. That I don't have to explain, and you will say that afterwards, like, yes, I experienced that, and that's where we wanted to go. But once you get there with this group setting, if you experience that, then when you do it alone, it's much easier to get there. But if you never experienced it and just only knowing the theory, it'll be very difficult to grasp that idea without experiencing. This always has to be done seated down. That's the only way you can cultivate your Dantien. So raise your tailbone with this just a little bit. By listening to the sound of the metronome, you think of less, because you're busy counting at this point.
Yes.
Like, oh, you have to focus in here.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you could, you don't have to set aside like 20-30 minutes. That's just too much.
Yeah.
And if I think, oh, I'm going to do another session, maybe at 2 p.m., and for some reason something happens at 2 p.m., it's always repeating that way. So don't plan anything. So whenever you find a couple of minutes, set it and sit there and, something like that.
With your tailbone slightly elevated?
It's because if you're sitting without this pillow, then your back gets like this and your lower back. This is natural curve. And you tend to go like this. And what we want to do is the most natural way of breathing. And when we put this pillow just slightly above it, and so then it becomes curved, natural curve, more natural curve. Because my back is already straight. If there's anything, I'm a stiff person, so you can't tell much of a difference. But people who are more flexible, you can tell a bigger difference. So once you raise it, it's more comfortable, and it's much easier for you to sit a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And then when you're sitting down this way, you will notice later that it's not straight as in like straight back, but it's actually, as long as you keep your lower back kind of, set it properly, then your front is slightly bent forward. Because our airway worked that way. Our airway is designed that way. So keep it as loosely as you can. Gently forward about that much. But your height, then that feels more natural. Just slightly bent forward. Yeah, lying down is not cultivating your Dantien. You wouldn't not cultivate it. So I don't mind you leaning back against the wall. Just comfortable enough to support your back and make yourself comfortable, but your spine has to be 90 degrees to the ground. So that's the only way you cultivate. For men, sometimes beginning sessions, first session or a second session, I ask them to lie down so they can get the sense of where the Dantien is. But for women, no excuse. You know where it is. We never controlled breathing. Breathing is under the control of our unconsciousness.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we can control breathing. So we cannot kill ourselves by not breathing, because our survival instinct will kick in. Yeah, it's impossible, right? It's under the control of unconsciousness. So we're tapping into God's territory. So this has to be approached with utmost respect and also with caution. For example, the plants are growing, and how do they know when to bear fruit, when to grow another branch? How do they know? How does our body know when to stop growing our eyebrows? Sometimes it's too much, sometimes not enough, right? And I mean, our hair grows forever. And, how does our body know how to move the heartbeat and certain beats? When to release certain hormones? It's all under the control of our unconsciousness. Breathing is the same thing. So we never, up until now, you never try to control your breathing. So it's awkward. You can, yes, you can. So that's what I meant, because every in and out, that one set, every cycle, that's one cycle, is a life. It's one life. So it's all separate. So that's why you don't have to push it to do it all continuously, because it'll be very difficult at the very beginning. Learning hand-eye coordination to play tennis. Later on, it will just come naturally. You don't have to think which foot first, or when to swing. You don't have to think.
It's like a flow.
Yes. So it will become a flow, very natural flow. Breathing in, out, inhale and exhale. It's not one motion. When you run da 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 da, and then you have to switch the direction. So it's not quite stopping. Inhale, and it's almost like not quite stop, but shifting gear to exhale. Later on, it becomes very flowy, of 4 in, 4 out, 4 in, 4 out. It'll be very natural. Yeah. So I didn't tell you earlier because it's going to be too much to digest at once. But as you're trying it out and noticing these things, then I can just fix you one at a time. It's much easier that way. Yeah. So you basically, that's why I gave you the abstract idea of no lungs. We skip this part, only here and there, then this doesn't move.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's like this. And some people say that they're trying to breathe not upwards but downwards, breathing in and out like this through uterus.
Okay.
Your nose is there, not here. She said that helps her. But how I do it is, of course, when people give the idea of breathing, they naturally relate to this and that, and it never goes down there, right? It never hits here. But now our focus is here, our awareness is here, you're breathing through here. So maybe her idea of breathing through here makes more sense. Or how I look at it is our physical body is here, energetic layer of body is like here, and Dantien is here. I'm breathing in and out through the entire unit.
Okay.
So whichever is easier for you. Out of this air, our whole purpose is taking the qi in, not the empty air. We don't need it.
Yeah.
Normal breathing we do. That's why we need the lungs. But then this whole exercise, we want to get to the point where we want to take in. So for example, we need to take this much of air to get that much of qi. We want to skip all this, and we want to only take this in lots and lots of units of that only. So it's a slightly different concept.
Okay.
Yeah.